Today we'd like to welcome David Askew, Salmon Arm resident and owner and president of Askew's Food here in Salmon Arm. David holds an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering from UBC and a master's degree in adult education from University of Toronto. He's had a varied background, working as a chemical engineer with DuPont of Canada, and then as a career counselor with the University of Toronto, and following that, a manager of public consultation, working with the government of BC. Since 2007, David has been the president and general manager of Askew's Groceries. His most significant accomplishment at Askew's has been leading the design and construction of Askew's Uptown. This development has won numerous awards and enjoys considerable success as a place to shop and socialize, and I will attest to that. Askew's is headed into their 93rd year of operation, and David plans to continue his leadership role working with Askew's management to address the challenges of the changing business world, sustainability considerations, technology, and the changing needs of Askew's. So thank you, David, for joining us today for this interview to talk about Askew's and your business.
Well, it sounds pretty daunting what you just said.
Yeah, it does. Okay, before we get started, I guess I would just like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Shuswap Nation. So I think just to start with, let's talk about what the overall environmental philosophy is of the Askew's brand. And do you have a sustainability policy at Askew's?
Well, we've always been very, very interested in being conservationists, I guess, in terms of how we use our raw materials and the environment and so on, in our company. And I was thinking of this story that about my uncle who had to deliver some meat up a steep hill in Salmon Arm, and his father said to him, "David," he had the same name as me, "don't forget to bring the box back." So my uncle delivered the meat. He folded the box up, put it over the handlebars of his bicycle. He was a speed demon and headed down Merton Hill. As he headed down the hill, the carton flew up in front of his face. Now, he did manage to make it, but that was, kind of my grandfather, the founder. That's kind of the philosophy that we've had all the way along, is to reuse things. When I was before I could drive, my father would go to the liquor store and pick up a box of empty liquor boxes, and my job was to take the dividers out, and then we used them to pack groceries. So we've always been, in 1967, when my father built the first supermarket of his in Salmon Arm, he put in heat recovery on the refrigeration cycle, which was way ahead of the time. Loblaws is just getting grants now from the government of Canada to do that sort of thing, and we've been doing it for over 50 years. So we've had a very strong environmental outlook from the beginning.
Oh, that's terrific to hear. And it sounds like you were ahead of your time there. So let's move on to some local issues then. What does Askew's do with waste food, or what we call waste food?
Well, we do donate to the food, to Second Harvest, bread and other types of things. Our produce goes to either to some farmers who pick it up from us, or small holdings that have animals they want to feed, chickens or pigs or whatever. And then it goes to composting at Spa Hills.
Great, good. And how does your business support local food producers, and in particular organic food producers?
We've always been interested, and of course, going back to the 1920s, a lot of what we sold was local. We had our own meat packing plant. We bought local animals, we slaughtered them, and we sold them in our stores. And we've kept that connection with local suppliers, local agriculture throughout the years. Of course, over the years, things have gotten more they've gotten kind of more global, I suppose, the theory of competitive advantage and all that sort of thing. We've always maintained a smallish group of local suppliers, whether it's the mills supplying us with corn or D. Dutchman Dairy in Sycamore supplying dairy products. So one of the things that we do is the organic food market, farmers market, used to be at a church up on 30th. And they approached me and said, what about, could we do it in your parking lot? And I talked it over. Our produce manager was a bit dubious, but we gave it a try, and we found that he found that he was selling more organic food the day that we had the organic market than on days when we didn't have the organic market, which just meant I think we were attracting people who were interested in food of that type, and they couldn't get everything at the organic market. So the rest they bought from us. So yeah, we've with local agriculture like asparagus in Armstrong, corn in Salmon Arm, and those kind of things. We get our fruit, a lot of our fruit, apples and so on, from the Okanagan, or some from Salmon Arm. So we've been big supporters of local agriculture, and I actually think that Askew's kind of demonstrates a way that modern supermarkets can cooperate with local people to buy and sell local food.
Yeah, oh, that's great. I notice when I'm in the store, there's lots of local stuff available, and it's really good to see.
And it's a big commitment from our people, because it takes just as much to buy 30 pounds of green beans as to buy 300 pounds of green beans. But the people who work at Askew's are solid supporters of this approach. And so they do have to work extra hard, but I think they get a lot of fulfillment out of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it really supports the local community quite a bit. It's good to see. So let's talk about climate change specifically, and how do you think the climate emergency will impact the sources and availability of food supplies? And the emerging issue, well, I guess it's not emerging, it's an existing issue now, of the supply chain.
Right. Well, we all experienced when COVID hit what happens when things get into short supply. And that's one of the questions I ask people: how long do you think Askew's would have food on the shelves, if the main routes from Alberta and the lower mainland, were cut off? So really, the local supply and trying to encourage local supply is one of the ways to try to get around this sort of thing. And it also reduces, of course, the amount of energy that's expended on transportation costs and the environmental impact of the expending of that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of the things we've done, when I look back on it, I thought, why are we switching from reusable pop bottles to disposable pop bottles and so on? None of those things made a lot of sense even at the time. They were cheaper, because the environmental costs weren't borne by the consumer or the manufacturer. But now that the chickens have come home to roost, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So just as a final question here then, David, where do you see sustainability initiatives moving towards in the future to reduce carbon footprint in the grocery stores?
Well, I think there's a number of things. I mean, one of the things is that for example, in our meat department, we have butchers. So, we manage our meat case. If you've got too many roasts there and they're not going to sell by the due date, you take them out, make them into hamburger and so on. So you try to reduce the amount of stuff that has to be disposed of to start with. That's a good start in terms of environmental sustainability. Local supply, like we were talking about earlier, helps. Those are the kind of initiatives I think that we have to get back to in order to get away from the heavy reliance on petrochemicals for transportation and bringing everything in from where it can be produced the cheapest.
Yeah, that's the end of our interview today, and I'd like to thank you very much for spending the time with us and just giving us your impression of where things have been and where they're going. And we do really appreciate Askew's stores locally here. It's a great asset for our community. Really appreciate it, David. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the work that you and your organization are doing to bring these issues, up for discussion and for action.
Yeah, thank you. We are pretty passionate about it, and we're going to keep going. Okay, thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.